Greetings to everyone. We have people from as far apart as Cambodia and Toronto and everywhere in between. Greetings to you all, and thank you for joining this very exciting milestone in the 22-year life of Refugee Law Project and in the development of archiving capacity within Ugandan civil society. I want to start today with a question. What is an archive? For us as Refugee Law Project, we've grappled to answer that. But in doing so, we've come down to three key elements. Firstly, an archive as a place where items, data, information, knowledge pertaining to particular issues, events, and people are centralized rather than being scattered. Second, an archive as a place where those items are easily searchable, easily findable, because they are well labeled or tagged. And thirdly, an archive as a place where that access is controlled in such a way that the confidentiality and security of the data itself, and relatedly of those whose data is held within the archive, are ensured and maintained at all times. Now, while that threefold definition has guided us on how to build and organize our archive, it doesn't say much about the purpose. Without preempting our commentators, I'd like to suggest it can also be captured in the idea that archives such as this exist to prevent evidence relating to matters of historical importance from disappearing into the mists of time. They exist to prevent erasures of traumatic experiences that have shaped too many lives and that require further thought, discussion, digestion, if they're not to remain as obstacles to people moving forward. As such, the archive is perhaps the clearest embodiment of a principle that RLP has long held close to its core, namely, to move forwards, we must first look back. Yet another way of thinking of an archive and our experience of this archive is as a fabric woven over time from multiple personal and institutional contributions, commitments, and relationships. I'm very glad that later in this session, we shall hear a word from Rosalba Oyiwa, one of the most consistent and sustained activists and peace builders in northern Uganda. Rosalba was already pushing the idea of an archive back in 1998, when I myself first went to northern Uganda. We shall also hear from Dr. Lucy Hovel, who also more than 20 years ago opened up RLP's research activities that since then, in the last 20 years, have generated a large portion of the data that you will see reflected in these archives. But along the way, as we've worked our way deeper into the archiving world, we've been glad to learn about and from the International Council of Archives, the ICA, to learn about and work with ATOM, which is just the acronym for a software, access to memory, an open source standards-based archiving software that is utilized by hundreds of archives around the world. So the combination of ICA and ATOM, by working with these two, we've been able to reassure ourselves that through this archive, we're joining a bigger international community of archives, of archivists, and of archive hosting institutions. In building our capacity to do that, direct financial support from OSEA, Open Society in East Africa, has been central, as well as core support from Wellspring and others. We're also profoundly grateful to Irene, a Swiss volunteer sending organization, for responding so positively to our, I would say, somewhat unusual request for a professional archivist, and for finding us Martin Beauvais. In less than 12 months, and despite COVID-19 related lockdowns and restrictions, Martin has been able to help us to iron out some of the long-standing kinks in our technical process and to get us to the point where we're at today. And then behind those who finance the process, there are so many who have made contributions in kind. When you look into the artifacts collection, for example, you'll see numerous items of huge emotional significance to the individuals who shared them with us. We hold them in trust and we hold them with gratitude. There are also many individual testimonies that people have shared with us in good faith, And we pledge to ensure that the right levels of confidentiality and privacy are sustained, and that our access protocols are fully in place by the time the archive goes properly live next year. I'd like to end these introductory remarks and expressions of appreciation by also renewing our call for contributions, because we see this very much as a collective archive. So if you do have individuals you want to see preserved in digital format, please do be in touch with us. As you will see when we go through the presentations, the source of every item is acknowledged unless specifically you request otherwise. So if you do contribute, you'll be joining an already very extensive list of institutional and individual donors. Unfortunately, time doesn't allow us to hear from all the team that have labored for many years now to bring us to where we're at today. But we do have a very eminent panel of speakers lined up, each of whom I get the pleasure of introducing very briefly. So for today, our first speaker is Mr. Oling Innocent. He's our Deputy Innovation Center Manager in our Gulu office. And he's been centrally involved in the technical work behind the scenes for the last 3 years. So Innocent is going to set the ball rolling by giving us an overview of the digital archive. So I'd like to now invite you, Innocent, to set that ball rolling. The floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Our moderator for today, Dr. Chris Dolan, the Director of Digital Project. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone listening from different locations of the globe. We are honored and humbled to have you take part in this launch of the Refugee Law Project Digital Archive System. Like Dr. Chris already mentioned, my name is Innocent Oling. I work with the Refugee Law Project as the Deputy Innovation Center Administrator based in Gulu office in Gulu District. On behalf of the great team behind this great work at Refugee Law Project, I am humbled and honored to unveil to you the Digital Archive System. The Digital Archive System is a platform that projects human rights issues at the grassroots levels to the global community. And launching this system on this International Human Rights Day is fulfilling to us as a Refugee Law Project and a rare opportunity as we seek to empower all human beings to live their human rights and enjoy the fulfillings of the human rights that we accord them. So the Digital Archive System is rich in terms of content and accessibility. Later on, I'll be able to show you how to access and the contents that are already stored on the system. So it offers to you different narratives of, on the history of Uganda as a country. We all are aware that Uganda has a lot of contested history. Most of it is not well documented. And some of them are testimonies and experiences from victims and survivors of conflicts in the different past legacies of conflicts in Uganda. And like Dr. Chris already mentioned, also on the artifacts bit of it, we have equipments or tools that were donated by different people or members of the community that hold their memories attached to them. So within the system, we shall be able to look at all those things and then the history or the narratives behind those different kind of artifacts or materials. So my work right now is very simple. I'll just take us through the system, and then thereafter we shall go and showing you how we are able to access the different contents or the different materials that we have already captured in the material in the system. So let me take this time to share my screen, and then we shall be able to look at the system itself. So for everyone tuning in right now, this is the front or the home page of the Digital Archive System. And once you're logged in through the link, this is the page you're presented with. So there are very many ways we are able to navigate ourselves into the system. One is using the search bar, which is located up here. It's a search window. And then we have also navigation links, like on the on the left-hand side, you see these links. These are different ways we can navigate ourselves into the system. And also we have a tree view kind of a presentation that once we are already in, we are coded, and then we can navigate our ways into the different materials that we are looking for. So to begin with, I would like to take us through the navigation links. And to begin with, I'm clicking on the Archival Descriptions. Archival Descriptions takes us to the different kinds of all categories of materials that are already in the system. So as you can see, we have photographs, we have press clippings, we have artifacts, and we have footages. So if you click on the artifacts, the photographs, then it takes you to another window that will present to you a carousel, which will present the attached or the linked images already, or photos in the system. And also, remember at the beginning, I said that we have a tree view kind of a presentation. So this is what I was talking about. So you see that we have also organized our materials in terms of regions or locations. So you see under Northern region, you'll see that we have actually sub-region. And also we have these different themes that we have already tagged to those materials. Like under access to justice, you see that we have images that were documented during the ICD trial. For example, in Uganda, we have the trial of Thomas Kwoyelo, one of the commanders of the LRA rebels group, and he's being tried under the ICD, the International Crimes Division of Uganda. So all these images will talk about the trials of the the trials that is taking place at the ICD, and also we have victims consultations. So under this, we have so many other activities that we do under victims consultations, and they are captured under those activities, under that main theme of victims consultations. So this is how we have presented our system for the photographs. And for the other materials, it's pretty much the same, although we have decided to make differences in the way we present it a little bit. Like for the press clippings, you see that the press clippings, first of all, are materials that have been published by the different media houses in Uganda. And for example, you see we have New Vision, we have the Daily Monitor, we have the Crusader, and we have Rupin. Rupin is a part of the New Vision, only that it's only in Acholi or in Luo specifically. So under this, we have different sub-themes. The themes that we have ideally identified to capture from the different publications by the media houses. Just because as an institution, we were very much interested in particular issues, but going forward, we shall think of having all of the papers captured, so that for anyone who is interested in materials that have been published, they will be able to access them easily. So you see that this carousel will present to you images of attached documents and the press clippings. So mere clicking one of them will take you to the material itself. And under it, you see that it belongs to New Vision. It was created by New Vision. And then some of the minor details that we have captured under it is here. So if you want to read this material, you may find that it's not very readable at this point in time. So if you want to read it, you just click on it again, then it will open for you another window. So this will present you in a way that you are able to read it in a much better way. So this is it for press clippings. And for all of them, you are able to access them in the same manner. So you have the different media houses, and if you click them, you find that the different themes are also captured under them. Let's go to the artifacts. Like I said at the beginning, the artifacts, these are materials that have been donated by the community members themselves to preserve memory of what they have passed through as individuals or communities, and also to preserve the cultural heritage of the different communities in Uganda. And under this, we have categorized them, or we have grouped them under, according to the nature of use. Like for this one, you see that it's labeled household equipment. And under it, you see images like pots, like gourds, all those things. So if you click on the pot bit of it, or material, you realize that there are two images linked, and out of it, you see that beneath, there are information that are captured relating to this artifact or to this particular material that has been donated. You see, there's an archival history down here where you're able to see the source of acquisition and the reason as to why it was donated. So also under scope and content, you see that the location is captured. So reading through this, you're able to acquaint yourself with the particular material that has been presented before you in the form of image. And also down here, you see that we have access point area where you're able to see the actual, district where it's donated from, and also the genre under which it falls. So that is basically for the artifacts. So like I said, it's always the same. We have presented them in the same manner, but only that the groupings will differ from material to material. So that is it. So these are all materials that have been presented. Like you see here, this is a traditional bed that was also donated by a community member. And down here, you'll see that the archival history, the source of acquisition is here from also Agago district in northern Uganda. So all these are ways that we have presented these materials. So if we are to go to the footages or the videos, this is the same way we have also presented it. So under clean inventories, you see that we have categorized them according to the different regions. For issues that are national, we have called it cross-cutting initiatives because it cuts across all the regions. And then for specific region-related issues, we have categorized and put them under the different regions. So for northern Uganda, you'll see that we have this, the different sub-regions again, like for Acholi, and then different activities that we carry out under these different sub-regions. So you see that this is something that we show you every time, or you will be presented to you every time. And this is our activity that we carry out in the community, like victims, community engagements. So this is the way that we have presented the system to you. And also on the upper level of the description, you see that the same is being captured, the name of the creator, because it's us who carried out the documentations, we are the creator. And then the scope and content is here, where we tell you a little bit about the activity, and then the location and all those things. So also down here, you see that under access points, we also capture the different issues that were, or issues that came out of the discussions. So basically you realize that this one was during community consultations were on the trial of Dominic Ongwen, which was happening at the International Criminal Court. So that was it. And then the issues that came out was because that was an area where massacre took place, and it was believed that it was Dominic Ongwen's group that carried out the massacre. So all these issues are captured, and then the particular location is Lokodi, which is also one of the locations under investigations in line with the trial of Dominic Ongwen. So that is it. So all these issues are captured. And also another way is we have organized these things according to the locations or the places where these issues have been captured. It's also part of the tagging system. So if you click on Uganda, you'll see that we have also categorized this, the different locations according to the regions. And if you click on a particular region, like the central region or eastern region, you see that there are so many other sub-regions and districts under sub-regions. So all these issues are captured. The different locations are captured. So in one way or the other, if you don't want to go through all these steps, you can just come to the search bar and then type the particular issue that you're interested in. So if you're interested in something like conflict, you just type conflict. So it will tell you that there are 696 results with digital objects related to conflicts. So if you're looking for any material in relation to that, you can just type it there and then it will present itself to you. And also on the left-hand side, you see that there are these materials, I mean, the categories of materials that are already there. So we have press clippings, we have footage, and all these things. So the creators are also here. So if you're looking for a particular creator or the people who created the issue or donated or something like that, it's under the creator. So if you see, these are different individuals who donated or who contributed materials to the system. So all these issues are captured, and we are building profiles for these people so that every time you want to know more about them, it's very easy and possible for you to know about them. So that is that. So, and for the subjects, like I already told you, if you want to click, I mean, search by subject, you can do this. Just type the subject. If you want to search by people, you can also search by people. So if you're looking for something related to Dr. Chris Dolan, you just type Dr. Chris or Chris Dolan.
What's going to come up?
So if it's only Chris, it's Dolan. So that is it. So you find that there are so many records that are related to or linked to Dr. Chris Dolan. So if the name is captured under either place or subject or something like that, the results will be displayed to you in the same manner. So you just navigate your way to the particular material you're looking for. So that is it from me. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much, Innocent. I think a round of applause if we were together in a room. I see some hand claps coming on the screen. What an incredible introduction to an incredible amount of work. I think everyone can see just how much has gone into getting us to where we're at now. It's a moving feast. It will, and we call it a living archive because we have a lot of material which has not yet been actually uploaded and therefore cannot be yet accessed. And so that process will continue. And as I said earlier, we hope that additional materials will come forward, so there will be an ongoing process of adding more and more over the years. The person who's going to speak next has actually been central to going through some of that huge volume of material and getting to grips with it, sorting it, labeling it, what we call cleaning it. And that person is Grace Achan. Grace works with the Refugee Law Project as an archives officer. I'm proud that we have that as one of our job titles. By background, she's a social worker, a human rights activist, a survivor, and a co-founder of a community-based and survivor-led organization in northern Uganda. Grace is also the author of Not Yet Sunset, a story of survival and perseverance in LRA captivity. She's a member of SEMA Network and victims representatives with the Global Survivors Fund. So as I said, in her role as archives officer, Grace has been absolutely central to cleaning up the data which Innocent has been giving us a glimpse of on the archive interface. So Grace, over to you to tell us a bit about your experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Chris. Dear participants, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening from wherever you are viewing from. My name is Grace Achan, as Dr. Chris said. I'm an archive officer at Refugee Law Project. I'm going to take you through the process of cleaning in archiving and how I feel doing this work. Cleaning data is one of the many and long processes in archiving that take place after the data has been collected and stored but before it is released to the public. Data cleaning is about ensuring that descriptions conform to the international standards of the International Council on Archives, ICA. It involves a systematic way of describing archive content. By content, I mean the footage that Innocent has just taken us through, the photographs, the artifacts, and press clippings. It starts from the use of raw materials that has been collected from the field. Then it goes to this, when it comes out, like to bring out the final descriptions that contains, because these raw materials contained already, they're assigned to codes. Of course, there was a date that that event took place. Like if it is a footage, the duration of the footage, and the summary of the information that is there. Then in the summary, I look for the name of the person who was speaking, if it is a person speaking, or like someone speaking, the name of the person, the title, or the status, and the exact place where the event took place. So, and then out of the information that someone said, I'll be able to come out with the tag, of which this tag or the tags are used, like Innocent explained, to search for the information when it is fed into the system. So I extract these tags and I come out with the final title that will be used in the atom, the way Innocent was showing you earlier. So this process takes time, and it involves a lot of thinking sometimes to come with a very short and precise title. And it also involves like sometimes searching or researching on the internet and consultation with colleagues who were present during the event to find the correct information. And it takes time if the details are missing. After this, there is another step of verification that is done by a group. Thank you to Martin and Diana. We normally would sit together to verify, to check, to prove, or to correct the information. Then it is submitted for upload. Really, what gives me motivation to do this work is desire for justice for war survivors. As a survivor myself, my past work with fellow survivors for close to 10 years, plus the 3 years I've worked on this archive, it gave me the opportunity to use the context that I know of what happened in northern Uganda, and the language knowledge and experience to do the work. This I can say, sometimes these things are done in the local language. And for example, let me take an example in Acholi. When you go to Kitgum, there's a way they call certain things in a certain way. When you go to Lamoa, the same way. Come to Gulu, go to Amuru. But I think I've got the opportunity to kind of get all these languages, whether you speak from Palabek, whether you speak from Paimol, it's all actually, but there is a difference. With someone from another part may not understand, but I have the opportunity I understand this so well, it makes my work easy. So this has enhanced my knowledge and given me deeper understanding of diverse issues on conflict, culture, leadership, politics, economy, to mention but a few. I feel storing this information is one of the ways of preserving information for future reference and various uses for the generation to come. So in interacting with this information, I must say I also I got some things I have to say. It made me resilient. First of all, by reading some of the stories, it has given me a lot of courage as a human being. Because sometimes you see someone has gone through a lot, but has the courage to move on, to say, to speak, to talk about it. So this has given me a lot of courage as well. It has given me additional healing after writing the book, Not Yet Sunset, because you may be down at sometimes, but after seeing the courage someone has to do what the person is doing through the reading that I read, really, this is very interesting. And I must say, this work is interesting in a way that it has diverse information that no one, like you can never be bored. Like this time I've read only this information concerning war, tomorrow I'm coming with no, another time you have another information. So I must say it has diverse information. I also got the opportunity to learn new things, and not forgetting that sometimes it's heartbreaking. Yeah, it makes you emotional, which is very normal. And when this happens, normally, if it is a particular script, you put it aside, get another one, because there are many. So you pick another one, when you're up, you're fine, you go back to it again and work moves on. This work is like, I'm going to compare it with like cooking, like preparing a meal to bring on a table, this archive work. It is a collective work, a collective effort. It's just like production, for example, that cannot be done without other factors of production like land, labor, and entrepreneur. In this way, we cannot, in archives, you cannot do without some technicians, IT technicians. Innocent is there. Without someone directing, like Makta is there. Like someone in charge of the footage, like Diana is there. Cleaning, I'm here. Deo is there. So it's like, it's a collective kind of work, which is like cooking food, like bringing food on the table. Someone brings from the garden, it is sorted, cleaned. Someone is there in the kitchen ensuring it hasn't, the salt is okay, it's ready. And then later someone carries, like today, Innocent has walked her through. We normally call her, she's the one, is the one going to present it on the table, set it on the table. This is how I normally explain this work. So briefly, this is the process that we undergo. And I must say it's interesting, and thank you so much. This is where I end. Thank you. Over to you, Dr. Chris.
Thank you so much, Grace. I think you've added so many issues and ideas and so much thinking into this process, and also in your presentation this afternoon. I think the idea of, that looking through an archive, working on the materials can itself be a healing process. I think that's a very important element. And I think reiterating the importance of the team, that there is no archive that comes from one person. An archive is really a reflection of so many different investments of effort by many different individuals and working as a team. And I'm glad you mentioned our colleagues there who've been part of that process. Gives me a lot of pleasure to invite Dr. Lucy Hovel to give us some comments on the archive. Lucy predates me, a refugee law project, and was really the foundation of our research activities. And I think she will mention a word or two about that. Now, amongst many other commitments, she's the managing editor of the International Journal of Transitional Justice. And I can say, from knowing Lucy for many years now, she has really a deep understanding what it means to get things moving from scratch. And in terms of content, amongst other things, is extremely well versed in both forced migration and transitional justice. So Lucy, over to you.
Chris, thank you very much. It really is such an honour to speak at the launch of this archive today. And I really can't tell you how happy it makes me to see this initiative come to fruition. As Chris said, I joined the Refugee Law Project a long time ago. It was actually in 2000. And at that time, we had $6,000 in our bank account. We had a staff of, I think, 5 or 6 of us, and we didn't even have a director. Fortunately, we did have Dr. Joe Lokonyango, who was then the Dean of Law, who was keeping an eye on us. But back then, no one had heard of the Refugee Law Project. We didn't really have a brand, and we didn't have a reputation, if you like. And when we published our first working paper, we didn't even have a website to put it on. In fact, we hand-delivered hard copies of the paper to embassies and the offices of anyone we thought might be interested in what we had to say. So it would be an enormous understatement to say that the RLP has come a very long way since then. And the launch of this archive is just a testament to that. And it really is a testament to the extraordinary tenacity and the vision and the self-belief and the incredible hard work of so many people over so many years. And I think we've had just a small taster of that from Innocent, who gave us a glimpse of what this resource will have to offer us. And I love the picture that Grace gave us of a meal and this incredible abundance, but that's put together by so many different individuals. And of course, as we've also heard, it's also a testament to the many lives that are remembered as a result of this initiative. In any community or country or region where violence has taken place, it's so vital to remember, and to remember in the right way, in a way that honours its victims. And archives have such an important role to play in this. We all know that healing in the aftermath of war and atrocities is an intensely complex and a really fraught process. There are no roadmaps, and healing rarely has a clear endpoint to it. So it demands multiple strategies, and it demands enormous determination to make sure that those who have been silenced are finally given a voice and are given justice. So therefore, given its complexity, time and place really matters when we think about justice. And I just want to reflect very briefly on what that means for this new archive that is being launched today. This archive that represents a repository of memories that could all too easily have been forgotten. So in terms of time, many transitional justice mechanisms, for instance, criminal tribunals and truth commissions, are temporal events. Once they are over, they form a really important part of a wider narrative around any conflict, but they are in effect historical moments in time. So an archive has the advantage of being a living record, something ongoing and dynamic. This archive that's being launched today will be updated and changed, and this is the beauty of it. But of course, it's also the enormous challenge of it, and none of us are under any illusions of the huge amount of work that this represents, both now and also in the future. But place also matters, and so it's really significant this archive has been created in Uganda. It belongs first and foremost to those who have lived through the events that are remembered through it. Its heart is beating right where the trauma and the atrocities took place, and the significance of that cannot be overstated. So yes, as we heard from Dr. Chris Dolan, this is an archive of global stature in its quality and in its reach, but it is also thoroughly local in how and where it has been created. It's not just another imposition from outside, if you like, or another mechanism for extracting information to the global north. But it also joins these two spaces together, the intensely local voices it represents and the wider global conversation on transitional justice. And therefore it represents an enormous contribution to wider discussions across the world on transitional justice. And you have so much to teach other places from all that you have learned through this. And so for these reasons, it imbues huge significance in honouring the memory of victims. This archive is one way of bringing the past into the present and of shaping a future that can be more equitable and more just as a result. So as I look around the RLP today and I see what has been achieved, I feel incredibly honoured to have been part of this small piece of history within a much broader, bigger history, and to be part of what Chris referred to as the social fabric that has been woven together in order to create this archive. So I really just offer you my congratulations, and I really look forward to benefiting from this incredible resource in the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lucy. I see people clapping hands on using their Zoom, whatever we call those things. Yeah, I love the contrast you draw between the kind of institutions that generally get set up as, but which become historical moments themselves, the TR, the Truth and Reconciliation Commissions, special tribunals, and so on, versus this, what should be a living record. And, you know, related to the digital archive is the physical archives that we hold in Kitgum at the National Memory and Peace Documentation Center. And we call that a history clinic, with the idea that, you know, there is some healing that you can find by going there and looking at particular things and having particular conversations. So it will be interesting as time goes on to see how this digital archive also has a therapeutic benefit as well. I'm going to move swiftly on to our second commentator, Dr. David Chimba. David is a senior research fellow at Refugee Law Project. I would describe him as a historian by training, an academic practitioner by experience, and an academic mentor and provocateur by inclination. His recent doctoral thesis was recipient of the prestigious Lynn Rena Award for Best Dissertation in 2020. That's an award made by the American Political Science Association. So you can see that he has his feet in several different locations at once. And we're very glad that at least one of them is with us at Refugee Law Project. David, please go ahead with your thoughts on this new archive.
Well, thank you so very much, Chris, and thanks everybody for making the time on such an important Human Rights Day, where we are choosing to foreground duty. We are having our Human Duty Day, duty to collective knowing, and I think this digital archive which we are launching is really an important moment of duty to our knowledge, duty to our past, and duty to face our future with some lessons from our past. I want to address myself to three brief questions, and as I was listening to Innocent Oling taking us through that demo, I asked myself, so what does it mean to get this archive online and accessible to so many constituencies? And I can't help it but think of, in addition to the decolonization talk which is going on, I think what it means also to have this archive launched is that we are in very many ways democratizing as well memory and history knowledge from and in the global south. And for me, the real meaning here is that possibility of democratizing knowledge, and particularly heritage knowledge coming from the global south and about the global south and for the global south. I also ask myself, why then should people, academics and non-academics, policy and non-policy, state and society at large, why should they go to this archive? Why should they visit this archive once it is launched, once it's accessible online? I think listening to Grace and connecting to what Lucy has just told us, this archive is very much a people's archive. It's a people's archive, and it reflects a history from below. And being a people's archive, it is very much preoccupied with those in the margins, those violently pushed to the periphery of the states. So we are having here an occasion to recuperate those memories, memorialization from the peripheries, and bring it back to the center. It's an archive that does not recenter the states, but an archive that foregrounds society, a society that has been pushed to the margins and to the periphery. And I think it is important that we go to that archive for that matter. And lastly, I ask myself, therefore, so how then does this launch we are having today, how does it connect to the global debates about heritage and memory politics we are having? In the recent painstaking moves from Britain and France and many other former colonial powers on the repatriation of collections of important memories and heritage artifacts, we have seen them being packaged and thrown into the plains for their rightful historical heirs. I think what this launch is really telling us is that as we taking care of our rich and preciously collected and catalogued archive is worth our while, storing it and availing it with the greatest levels of safety to the digital cloud. I think it's a very important act of responsibility. And more importantly, it speaks to our very own agency as historical beings who have demonstrated by launching this, the capacity of being not only history keepers, but also history users. And so we can't wait for an next plane 100 years from now to be flown back to Entebbe to bring up our pieces of history. We are already taking our pieces of history to ourselves and unveiling them in the safest clouds. And I think this is very important. The pandemic has given us very important words like immunity, has brought to our attention words like health, wellness, checkup. I think the digital archive is also giving us a slice of Uganda's history clinic, in the words of Chris, a history clinic that we hope it can help us also draw some immunity ingredients as we face a very anxious future moving forward. Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much, David. I think I hope others also are taking away many you give us language. I like the idea of foregrounding society that is otherwise been marginalized or pushed to the margins. The idea that it's an act of responsibility to have an archive, an act of agency. And I think I saw Rosalba nodding several times in the course of your remarks. So I'm very happy now to, as we open the floor to observations from the many participants who've been with us for this hour, I would like to invite Rosalba to begin that process of giving us some observations. Just by way of introduction, I count Rosalba as a very close professional friend. We've been interacting since 1998. And as I said earlier, my own experience of Rosalba is as one of the most consistent and committed activists I've come across in my own work. And so, and as a vision holder, and who had a vision of an archive long before anybody was even thinking about it for Northern Uganda. And I hope it's happy that it's now become a vision for a national archive, even if some of that national archive is located in the north, that has generally been marginalized. So with those few words of introduction, Rosalba, I would be very, very glad if we could hear from you, your thoughts on this day and on this occasion. We need to unmute you, Rosalba.
Thank you very much, Chris. Just as you have said, my name's Rosalba Toywa. I live here in Bulu City. I would like to thank so much the Refugee Law Project for giving me pleasure, for giving me happiness today, because I've seen what I've been dreaming about coming true. I've been longing for this type of thing. And my desire was driven mainly by fear. Living in the destructive war in northern Uganda, I could see that most of us were going to die. And I could see that my own people themselves might not be there to tell the story of what might have happened, or even the story about us as a people who are lived on earth. So that was pushing me almost to madness. In 1994, some of us who were female staff of a court, we documented the women's experiences of armed conflict using oral testimony as a method of documentation. I was very happy to see those powerful stories coming from ordinary women who even didn't know how to read and write. I'm happy to learn that that testimony is now being put in the archive in London. And I know that is where it will be for any other persons to know what had happened to those women based on their story. Then in 1997, I happened to go to South Africa. When I visited the museum and saw how things of the past were still being lived in present, I could see Nelson Mandela talking to people. I could see those activists still inspiring the others to do something to bring peace. And that was when I came back and I started really sharing with Chris, telling him he had really known about it too. But I said, couldn't that thing happen here? Because that would be the only way to keep our memory, the only way to keep stock of the things that we had, the only way to document the music, the beauty, everything that we have enjoyed as a people in Northern Uganda. Chris, I'm very, very grateful to you. You remember very well that the complex political emergency consortium had wanted to deploy you in Rwanda. But when we met them in Leeds, I was the one who swayed them to ensure you come to Northern Uganda, because I told those people that, in Rwanda, Chris might not be able to get much because those people keep a lot of secrets. But in Northern Uganda, I've really done some research, and Chris would build on that. And I think that was good work to have led me to that place where they could have really taken you to a place where maybe I don't think you wouldn't have been able to do all this work. So I'm very, very happy, Chris. It is only good that will pay you for what you have done to the people of Uganda, particularly for the people of Northern Uganda, because I know there's no way we are going to lose all what you have kept in this archive. Thanks a lot, Chris.
Thank you so much, Rosaba, and thanks for giving us that sense of the journey from all the way from before South Africa, after South Africa, Leeds, the many steps that have helped to build us to this point. We are left with, we have 15 minutes now and the floor is open for any additional comments or observations or reactions that the participants wish to make. I think Gilbert is the person controlling this process, but we would love to hear from other people now before we come to some closing remarks from our head of programs, Devota Nui. I see many people that are very close friends of Refugee Law Project among the participants.
Can we raise our hands virtually so that you can be unmuted? Thank you.
So if you're not very familiar with Zoom, look along the bottom bar and you'll see a button for reactions, and you click on reactions and then you can raise a hand. Gilbert, is anybody raising a hand? If not, if people could write a question or a comment in the chat, that's also good. I mean, we've had some very, very nice comments in the chat. I see Dr. Amona Kizito has raised a hand. Gilbert, can you allow Dr. Kizito to speak?
Yes, hello?
Hello, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I want to appreciate all that has been done. This is quite a lot. Maybe I just have a small concern. Of course, I'm a researcher from Uganda Matters University. I wanted to know whether the organization has a process where some kind of national authority also audits what they do. Because as a researcher, I'm very much interested in the authenticity of all that has been done. Thank you.
Thank you. So the question is, do we have a national authority to audit what we do? I think the immediate answer is no. But we do work closely with Uganda National Museum. So we hope that interaction will also ensure that we're not doing something that is out of sync with what the National Authority for Museums is doing. But I think in terms of I always think that the question of the quality and reliability of the data, it really lies in being able to go back to the source. And that's what an archive does, is it doesn't polish up the data. It allows a researcher such as yourself to go and look at the transcript, or go and listen to the recording, or watch the video, so that even if you could not be there at the time yourself, you can make your own assessment of what the person was saying or how they were saying it. So in that respect, I don't think that you can necessarily have a national authority that is going to guarantee the value of the data. I think it's for you as a researcher, or for us as researchers, to try to get back to source materials and not just read very sort of small extracts from those source materials. We have a hand from Nyomungere Eric. Can you please unmute, and then we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, my name is Nyomungere Eric. Based in RLP Settlement, one of the advocates that has been trained by RLP Digital project.
Eric, we cannot hear you. I think you'll have to speak up a bit, please.
My name is Nyomungere Eric from RLP Settlement, and then I'm an advocate. So when I have heard about archive, there's something I wanted to ask exactly. Since it is divided into regions, and I've seen it's based mostly in northern region, will other people internationally access the archive that has been created, or it's going to be for the people in northern region?
Thanks for that question, Eric. And I think I can answer it very briefly, but I think Innocent's presentation made clear what we're creating spaces for all the regions. And as Refugee Law Project, we have for many years now sought to make sure that when we're doing research and documentation about conflict, we don't focus only on the most high profile conflict, which has been the Northern Uganda one, but we go to every part of the country. And one of our big efforts in that regard was the Compendium of Conflicts, which covers about 70 or 80 different conflicts that we found when we went to a sample of about 20 districts around the country. So the archive is very much about, it's about what we see in very many different parts of Uganda. And it also can also include testimonies from refugees from other parts of the region. So it's not a Northern Uganda archive, much though, of course, there is a lot of data about Northern Uganda, because that was really the biggest and the longest running internal conflict, or like conflict that was being seen from within Uganda. Benedicto Capito, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dolan, for having this organized. I'm very pleased being part of this, and I'm happy seeing my brother David, seeing Dr. Lucy and other colleagues and friends participating in this. We're understanding the importance of keeping memories and doing justice to those memories when they are kept, because that way, then you have a basis for either judging history right or undoing the misjudges of history going forward. For the presenters, I've been interested, as the theme says or indicates, I have been expecting to have some key emerging issues, both in our efforts towards setting up this digital platform or archiving, as well as from the past conflict histories, the harms and injustices of war, the transitional justice initiatives, aware that discourses have been on to make our either community, regional, and cultural justice systems to get some kind of acceptance and to be in the discourse of what is legal and can formally be applied. So what are the emerging issues from both our work and the dreams of making restorative justice and transitional justice more accepted, more appreciated, and embraced to that effect? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Benedicto. I think that's a great question. You know, does an archive such as this have materials that allow us to dig deeper into how justice is done and to give proper attention to how justice is done through different mechanisms, different systems, different lenses? But I would like to throw that one back to the, not throw it, that sounds rude, but I would like to open that question up to the panelists to see your thoughts. Like, to what extent can a digital archive like this help to broaden understandings of justice and get us away from a very Eurocentric model of what transitional justice is and should be, and what models of justice actually work for people on the ground? David, maybe you can set the ball rolling. You talked about looking from the bottom up.
Sure. Yeah, I think there's been a very significant challenge in ethnographic research about the quality of data and what that data can allow, how much expansive is it for an interpretation of what's happened, and particularly in historical research. First of all, there's dearth of data, and that's the little that is available is poorly accessible, or rather difficult even to access. So there is an avenue here about what this archive brings us. It pluralizes the data. We are having that in this one stop. It is very key because whether we want to move away from ethno justice or whether we want criminal justice, there is need for a basis. Criminal justice bedrock is persecution. Persecution means evidence for criminality. You need data. If it is restorative justice, we need to know what needs to be restored, what was broken, so that it will be restored. The data about what is broken and the broken is important. So I see that this is a very modest but significant step into getting closer to the data question. And then it is a very ethnographic kind of data. It is coming from lived experiences, some of donations coming from people who are key and very important participants, observants, or even interviewees. So that also enriches even the data. It makes it more expandable, more stretchable for whatever historical imagination you can apply. And I think there is a possibility of richer quality data with this archive, and hence Ben's concern that we can face justice not just as one-way traffic of what this happened, but we can even get why it happened, how it happened, and that can nuance what we do about what happened.
Thanks very much, David. I remember when I was doing field work back in the late 90s, there was somebody who wrote a piece called Bending the Spears and kind of tried to capture an Acholi justice mechanism. But at the time, it was very difficult to know, what does this mean, the bending of the spears, and what does it look like? And to what extent was he romanticizing a traditional mechanism? So, you know, having access to documents that give us a bit more capacity to study for ourselves, I think is useful. But I see, Rosalba, you've been making notes on this particular question, and I would love you to give us your thoughts. Please unmute.
Yes, Chris, I totally agree with you. Because with all this information, it would give room to individuals to learn a lot of things rather than reading things that had already been written. You know, for us being oral in nature, there are very few people who have written something about many things about us. So most of the materials we get are from the West. But in most cases, the way they understand things is different. So this is an opportunity. This will provide opportunity for people to internalize what has come from the West and compare with the reality on the ground. And that will help us to know and understand things much better.
Thank you very much, Rosaba. I think, as you say, I mean, there are very issues of oral cultures and written cultures, those come into it. And I think that's one of the reasons why, as Refugee Law Project, we have put so much emphasis on video documentation so that we can go back and listen again. And indeed, even this afternoon, we are being documented through the Zoom video, so people will be able to go back and watch again if they wish to do so, and in future look back at this particular moment and see, well, so what were they doing? What did they think they were doing? And how do we judge it now, looking back? Thanks, Rosaba. We have a hand up from Chanwat James in Kiriandongo, I believe. Chanwat, please go ahead. And then I will take one more comment after you, and then I'll hand it over to Devota to bring the session to a close. Sorry, I have Chanwat and then Anne Monene, and then I think we'll be just about done. Chanwat, please go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much, and good evening, everyone who is here. I'm Chanwat James from Kriandongo. I'm a member of Kriandongo Video Advocate, one of the video advocates being trained by Refugee Law Projects. When I heard about this launch some 2 days back, it was one of the most happy moment to my side, because like as media for social change, we are doing advocacy video, and in most cases we need to get the facts. And if we are making documentaries, and we are making a series of documentaries, sometimes we are talking about what has been done those days, and with the coming up with this archive, it will help us a lot, because now before putting it into a digital archive, we need to travel from here to Kitco to access the archive from Kitco. But now, I want to appreciate Refugee Law Projects for putting this up and making it available to us at any time, because now, as we are doing our advocacy work, as we are handling issues or matters, we can easily refer to the archive, and we can always get the fact from there. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Chanwat, and thanks for your work from Kiriandongo. Anne Monene, please unmute and go ahead.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Congratulations for the great work you have done. Mine is a general comment, not so much as a question. And I think this is what I observe with the archive. One, it gives us an opportunity, not only as Northern Uganda, East Africa, but I think it becomes part of Africa's desire to redescribe itself, to recorrect itself with a sense of urgency. That is one thing that I actually see. Second, I think it gives us an opportunity to expand our thinking on decolonial aesthetics, and much more so when we talk about decolonial aesthetics. If I was to take the South African debate, when they talk about we want to decolonize, at times it means whose names, whose curriculum, whose images do we want to see? But from your archive, I think there's already an idea that maybe in using the Refugee Law Project, what we might be discovering and encountering is actually the body, the post-conflict body within the archive. Thirdly, I also want to make a connection in the sense that I don't think it's just by mere chance that Northern Uganda is located within Uganda, which had the history of how would you say, Buganda at once was a supreme power, and therefore it had its own ways of managing people and all that. But you see, the tradition with kingdoms within Africa is that there's a certain body person who is tasked with the duty of saying our histories, and that's the griot within the African context. Now, what I like about the Refugee Law Project, the archive, and it's been pushed from a context of Northern Uganda, is that we kind of expand our senses of appreciating the griot. So we don't have the West African griot who's a specific person born from a specific family, and for traditions and years, they're the only ones who can record our history. I think it brings us close to the Northern Uganda social history of Wango, who can say the story. And therefore, Grace can say the story, Rosalba can say the story, and Munene from Kenya can actually also say the story, and somebody else from Colombia. So this is something I also appreciate. I think there's just many possibilities on how this archive continues to establish itself. I'm grateful once again. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Anne. I think those are extremely important observations, all three of them. There are many other comments that have been made in the chat. It's not my role to go through them, but Devota, our head of programs, has been monitoring closely, and on the basis of that and everything that has been said in this last hour or so, it's now my pleasure to invite you, Devota, to give us the closing remarks and to bring this function to a close. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Chris. Good evening, good morning, and greetings from Uganda. Thank you to all the participants who have joined us virtually for the digital launch. I'd like to acknowledge and thank all the presenters, Dr. Chris, Dr. Lucy, David, Innocent, Grace Achan. Thank you so much for giving us more insight into the online archive by Refugee Law Project. Monitoring the chat, most of the comments were talking about the milestone, the huge milestone of starting the online archive. And most of the comments were talking about how there is a lot of decolonization, and RLP has offered the opportunity to collect data. And then from the discussions that we've been having, the participants were talking about the contribution has come from Northern Uganda, but however, we need to expand it to other parts of Uganda. And I would just like to reiterate what Dr. Cruz said earlier, that we are still receiving materials from everybody else to enrich the digital online archive. This is not the end of the process, it's actually the beginning of the process. The launch is to let the public know about the availability of the online archive, and it's available to be used by researchers, by students, by members of the public, and you can log in, and then for some information that is sensitive, you can make an application and get the information. So at this juncture, I would like to appreciate also the various RLP staff members. I'll not mention them one by one because there are very many. Those who have been with RLP throughout the 20 years, and also those who have managed to bring the online archive into fusion. There are those staff members in the Gulu office who have spent sleepless nights making sure that the digital archive has gone live. I have to say that we shall send out an email with a link on the where to click, and then you actually view the online archive. So thank you so much for everyone joining us. And I wish you to have today is International Human Rights Day, and we're actually looking at some of the human rights violations or document and also documenting what people go through in human rights. So at this juncture, I'd like to say thank you, and I'll bring this launch to a close. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So how does that one look?
So at this point, we shall have Gilbert ending the meeting, but the conversation continues on Twitter. Thank you, and also on email. Please be in touch with us. Thank you.
Thank you.